First, what I'm going to talk about is a little bit about the trip that I was so fortunate to be able to take. It was so amazing to be able to walk through the plaza where David is every day on the way to school, or through the, Uffizi, through their courtyard was also on the way. It's really surreal. I just can't say enough about it. If anybody ever thinks they want to do something like that, make it happen. It was so worth it. The project that I worked on, we were told the first day to, they had these big beautiful books, pick a picture, copy a master. That's how you learn classically, is you copy somebody else's work. And so I picked out this young woman, and I thought I had it out. Well, anyway, I can show you the picture of her. Oh, right here. And thought, well, she was speaking to me a little bit. This is going to work. It's going to be great. And it seemed like big, simple shapes. I kept thinking, big, simple shapes. That's all I need to know. So 2 days into it, I thought, I should look. And on the back of all of these beautiful prints that they had all the information of who the artist was. Well, I come to discover that it's a Leonardo da Vinci. Well, no pressure there. So, but the teachers kept telling me, Leonardo did it once. You don't have to do it a second time. Be comforting. So along what happens, the process that I was taught was the first, along with picking out a portrait on the first day, they had the board ready for us with the linen already attached with a special rabbit glue. Everything's done the old way. So then we had to gesso it. So that process was, and maybe some of you have done this, it goes on this way first, let it dry, it goes on this way, let it dry. You do this over and over and over, very thin layers. And then after that, you proceed to sand it with your name. Ginevra da Vinci. And the original was actually about 14 by 15 and dated about 1474. We thought that this was her betrothal portrait. And what happened through the years, there would have been more down here, and her hands would have been in this portrait, which would have been really incredible because Leonardo da Vinci probably was the master anyway, but with hands and figurative stuff, unbelievable. So she, so there's a lot of symbolism in here actually. These are juniper trees in the background. And being her name is Ginevra, and that the juniper tree, juniper in Italian is pronounced Ginepro, so it was a play on her name. And also during Renaissance time, the juniper stood for chastity. The egg tempera, I actually brought this in. We won't open it. It's cadmium red. It's like dynamite. Pretty cool stuff. So I'll just kind of talk about what happens first. This is actually, I brought these pigments back from Italy, and I also brought this bottle of the mixture, the egg mixture. Normally what you would do is you crack the egg and you take the white all away and separate it. Then you roll the egg on a piece of paper towel to get all the rest of the moisture off. And then you pick it up, hold it over a cup, prick it, pour it in. Some people will put a little distilled water with that. Otherwise, you can just use it in its pure form. And then that's your binder. So as watercolors, I think you'd all be very interested to maybe try this at some point because it is water soluble and it's supposed to work very well with watercolor, mixing the two together. Let's see.
So there's no gum arabic or anything else. It's just the yolk and the distilled water.
Right now, from what I can gather, what I've read online, these mixtures have some gum arabic in them,
Okay.
and eventually this stuff can go bad, and you'll know when your paint is bad too, because when you open these, there's some pigments that I mixed before I came, and see how little there is. It goes forever. It's amazing. And plus, you don't want to mix up too much in the beginning of a painting because when you open this, you need to smell it. And if it smells like rotten eggs, you need to chuck it, start over.
Who wants a painting that stinks?
Well, the painting itself won't stink, and what's really amazing about this, it is so archival. Have you ever had egg yolk stuck on your countertop? I mean, you gotta take a chisel to that stuff. You know, it's there. So once it sets up and then once it's varnished, it's not going anywhere. So, so as a water medium, it's pretty spectacular, I think, in that respect. And when it does dry, as you can see on here, it has a very matte finish, almost like pastel. But once it's varnished, those colors then will pop again. And there's even a quick, this book, if you ever get a chance to, even it would be nice even if just, you know, a couple people bought it and you shared it because it's very quick to read. It's called The Craftsman Handbook, El Libro de Arte by Giannino de Andre Giannini. He wrote this in the 15th century. Some of the stuff that's in here, I mean, we're still doing it. You know, it's been going on since the beginning of time, and we're still doing it. There's a little section here about how to paint faces, and what's interesting about it is this face and the underpainting under here was done with green. And I was told that always with a portrait and with flesh like this, there's always has to be that green under there. It must counterbalances the flesh tones somehow. They're old. But I find this really amusing. And the flesh colors too. With yolk of a town's hen's egg, because those are whiter yolks than the ones which country or farm hens produce. Those are good because of their redness, for tempering flesh colors for aged and swarthy persons. So the egg itself does make a difference. So I mean, he's got all the recipes are here. Everything is in here from fresco to how to you know, do the gold, just everything. It's what happens then after you have, you know, put all the underlayer on the gesso, sanded it, got, you know, prepared it. Actually, the thing you do before you paint the green on is you freehand draw your picture, just the basic lines of what you need, and then you have to take the time to poke all the little holes around it. And then you lie it on your board, and you have a piece of cloth, no mask on, you wouldn't want to wear a mask, and it has brown pigment in it, and you pounce, and that's how it transfers onto the board. And then it's after that that you basically connect the dots with the green paint. What I'll do is I'll mix up. I want to mix this blue for you because it's so fun to watch. So you do it in small doses. So you just put a little bit.
Could you move that board towards me, your palette?
Glass.
Glass?
Mm-hmm.
Just towards me.
Just towards you,
Yeah.
sure. Like that good?
Yeah, oh, that's great, that's
Perfect?
great, that's
Okay,
perfect,
good.
yeah.
Okay, I've got a little bit much there, but that's okay. What I really love about this, it's ultramarine blue, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but originally ultramarine blue came from a stone called lapis lazuli. There's only one place in the world it comes from, Afghanistan.
And
the mine's
Chile.
still there.
And Chile.
In Chile?
Yes.
Okay. So you take some pigment out. And of course, just like when you're working with pastels, you don't want to be blowing on this stuff. And just start stirring around. You can see how brilliant this is. So you get it mixed up a little. And you take your Mueller. And you grind, and you always grind to the right. Don't back up.
Why is that?
I was just told that, and I didn't
Oh,
ask
okay.
why. I figured if it was good enough for Leonardo and the guys, it was okay with me.
Ask no question.
No questions asked. And then it does stick. So then you just peel it off, gather it back up, and you end up doing this procedure, putting more and more pigment in there approximately 3 times. And after a while, you really get a feel for how much pigment to dump in. And you don't want to dump it all in at once because you want to keep grinding so it gets really nice. And what I'm working towards is, if you've ever beat egg whites, we need stiff peaks. It's the same,
Oh, okay.
just like when you're cooking.
Like meringue.
Yeah, just like meringue.
Huh? And this interesting.
I don't know why I am so fascinated. I turned into the class grinder. I mean, I just, it's in your brush or how much paint, and, you know, you kind of fuddle around till you figure it out. With this, because it's these thin layers that go on, if you start playing in an area as you're putting on another layer, and you stay there too long, it starts lifting everything up.
Wow.
So it's really frustrating. And when you get a chance, take a close look like this. This is by no stretch of the imagination what a really good egg tempera painting would look like. There's a few spots where the work is good, but there's a lot of spots where it's not, like especially down in her dress, because I would lift the paint and then it leaves a divot. So then you have to wait, and it's like watercolor in that when you've got that little mess going, you have to just get out of there and let it dry and come back to it later. It's the same thing. You can't fix it while it's wet, no matter what you do. Although I saw the teacher do it a couple times, but you know, she'd been doing it for 20 years, and like watercolor says, you go along, you know how much paint you have to put on top of a blossom or too much water and, you know, make it work. But it's also, your water is always right next to your painting. I've got a couple of water spots on here that couldn't be fixed, which was frustrating too, so it's tedious, very tedious. I will demonstrate on here just a little bit to give you an idea of how these layers work, and like that at home. So all you do, you would have a palette with little wells, and you can take a dab like that. It's amazing. And oh, here it is. And I'll just make a lightish green and do some stuff on
Well, now, where did that white come from?
here. Another jar, and
You mix it up with the egg tempera?
yeah, that was mixed
Okay.
at home.
Oh, okay.
Because I
Okay.
didn't think everybody'd want to sit here and watch
Right,
it. Yeah.
right. Well, I just
thought
want
I'd
to know.
There's these layers under here, and it's very hard to figure, so it's like this right next to each other. And then you can kind of do this cross hatching, of course. And then what's really nice, see, I'm going along great here, this is working, and as soon as this paint runs out, I won't get the same consistency again. Because I still don't quite know what I'm doing. So I'll let this run out. And it dries like instantly. So for those of you that like acrylic, oh, see now look, I've played here and I've lifted some already. So then if the white, so you'll be able to see this maybe a little better. I'll take this white, I'll work on her little lace thing. Here we've got some, finally, okay. So not only once you get it on there, then you have to figure out how to feather it out. And so it is, it's a very, just a whole different thing.
And are you doing that now just with a damp brush?
Yeah, and like watercolor, you do end up, I did discover that, here we go. that, I forgot because I'm painting, I can't tell how that goes. See, these are going on nicely, but part of the problem up here, and I don't know if you can see that on the camera,
Yeah.
the tempera that was put on the previous layer right there was not real smooth. Oh, and the other thing about tempera, when you take a close look at her, there's already places that are starting to crack, and that's the risky one of putting it on too thick. You can't like layer it on with a palette knife or something, because it'll just crack right off. There's also another way to do this I found online, where it's called a push puddle. So see, this is how you can highlight this, and you go, it's like drawing, you're drawing with the brush. This up here, there's way too much paint. This is much better down here. And there again, I'm having too much fun, I need to get out of there, I lifted off a little hole. Okay, any questions about this?
So you would do a painting like this and then do watercolor on top of it?
I don't know that you'd put the, well, yeah, what I would maybe do is like the underpainting, I would try it and see what happens.
Okay.
I also think, actually, I should have put that right on my I think if it were mixed, I don't know how well this will. Okay. Oh, the other thing, you can get this very watery. I think I started to mention this. There is an icon painter on YouTube, a priest from one of the universities. And it's quite a lengthy film, but he calls it push puddle, which is much more like our watercolor technique, where he was putting it on real thick, or more watery, I should say, not thicker. What happens if, maybe you already know this, but this pigment is what's in your watercolor, it's in your pastels, it's in your acrylic, it's in everything. It's the same stuff, it's what binds it together. I just want to see. Oh, you know, that has started to dry, and I think the other color, the watercolor, would have sat right on top of it. That's what it sure looks like. So I don't think there's any reason. I think you'd have to be very careful, water-wise, what you do. Because you wouldn't want to lift anything. It's staying, but it's separating a little.
Are you using straight watercolor here?
Yeah, I sure am. And I think I would have to do the watercolor a little drier. More that consistency of, you know, more pasty. Oh, sure, it'll sit there.